Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's so good to be back. It's so good to see everybody. How are you doing today? We have a spicy main topic to discuss today, guys. It's pretty spicy. Let's just put it that way. And that is going to be about Redfall. Well, now, normally, I wouldn't do a stream about an individual game's reviews, right? Because, hey, games get good reviews, games get bad reviews. It just totally, varies. And every game, doesn't live or die by an individual game's rating. But I decided to do a stream today because I'm seeing tons of discussion online about the overarching state of Xbox. Let's just put it that way, right? What's going on with Microsoft? What's going on with Xbox? Redfall is just kind of part of a continuing discussion that is going on about Xbox's software output, Game Pass, all sorts of things, right? There's tons and tons and tons of discussion about this. And so I decided, you know what? Oh, there's an echo? State of Xbox. Let's just put it. Oh, you know why? Sorry. I did have my stream running. It should be good now. Sorry about that. I had the stream running whenever I shared the tweet out. Good thing I was scrolled down, right? Sorry for the beginning. It should be cleared up now. Let me know in the chat if the sound is fine now. It should be. Luckily, I only went on for like a minute there at the top. Should be fixed. I see all your guys' echo. I'm going to wait to keep going just to make sure it sounds good. There should be no echo now. Okay, there we go. Sorry. That's what happens whenever you have a stream open, whenever you click out the link to share it and you forget to exit out of it. All right, anyways, now we're all good. Okay. So anyways, yeah, that's the main reason I decided to do this stream. I'm sure you guys, hopefully you guys heard what I was saying despite the echo. Basically, I decided to do a stream today, not because, an individual game has gotten pretty negative reviews, but really because this affects Xbox in general. And like I said, there's so much discussion going on right now about Xbox's software output, their hardware, Game Pass, what this all means. A lot of people, even within the Xbox community, very upset at the current state of Xbox. And I have some thoughts on it. I wanted to get some of your guys' thoughts on it, and so much more. So we can talk about whatever we want today. It doesn't have to be fully about Redfall, but that is kind of Redfall, and the state of Xbox is going to kind of be the focus. But again, if you want to ask me about something else, feel free to. I'll also let you know that this is going to be one of those weeks that I'm going to have 2 live chats because it's only, what is today, Tuesday? Yeah, it's only Tuesday. I expect Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday we're going to get more news. So I'll be doing a second live chat more than likely on Friday. In fact, not more than likely, it will be Friday. So Friday we'll have a second live chat to cover whatever else news breaks, during the rest of the week. So don't worry, we're going to have 2 live chats this week. But this one's going to be kind of Xbox focused. Now, if this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you, your comments, your questions. You drop them down into chat and we talk about the latest news in the video game industry. There's going to be 3 different ways to do that. First of all, of course, there is the free method. You type a question, whatever you want, it pops into chat and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. If you want to guarantee that I get to your question, there's going to be 2 different ways to do that. First of all, of course, there's the super chat option. You just type a donation of whatever you want. It alerts me to the super chat and I get to super chats immediately. The second way to guarantee that you get at least 1 question in this chat is going to be by becoming a channel member. Channel memberships are $4.99 a month, and if you become a member, the main benefit to you is that every single chat that I do, I try to make sure that every member in chat gets at least 1 question answered. So that's another way to guarantee that you get. I can't promise I'll hit every member's question because these chats are now starting to get fairly large. However, if you are a member, you're guaranteed to get at least 1 question answered, and that applies to every stream. So that's another way to do it. Just become a channel member. It should be right there under the join option. Thanks so much to all of the channel members. All right. So I'm not going to go in a big long spiel about my thoughts on Redfall right off the top because I, again, assume that most of the questions today are going to be about Redfall and the reviews and Game Pass and Xbox and all of that. So I'm actually just going to dive straight in, thanks to already over 100 in chat right off the bat. So let's just go. Let's just go straight into your guys' questions. I'm going to hit super chats first, then I'm going to hit member questions, and then I'll start hitting free questions. Okay, so the first super chat off of the top comes in from Rude with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Rude. Redfall seems to have been a failure in all aspects, even marketing. How can Xbox get it so wrong? What changes would you like to see in Xbox's strategy, especially if ABK deal falls apart? Okay, so first of all, let's comment on the actual reviews themselves. Unless you've somehow missed this, Redfall right now is coming in at a 64 Metacritic and a 65 OpenCritic. Now, for a AAA game, especially a first-party AAA game, we have to be honest, these are just very bad scores, right? It's not one of those scenarios where it's like a swimming in sevens scenario where, you know, a lot of, I think, very solid games get sevens, right? If you look at Dead Island 2, which people seem to overall be very much enjoying, that scored, I believe, a 74 on Metacritic. This is down in the low 60s, right? It's 64 on Metacritic. That could even potentially go lower depending on what reviews come in because there's still some big sites that haven't dropped reviews yet. So we just have to be honest, it's bad scores, right? Now, this also does not appear to me to be an outlier situation where it's like, oh, the media got it wrong, you know, and gamers love it, because tons and tons of replies to my tweet, including from Xbox fans, is them being very disappointed with the game after playing it on Game Pass. So this seems to be a scenario, and if you look at the PC reviews on Steam, they are also incredibly low on the user reviews. So this seems to be a scenario where it's like across the board, right? It's not just, oh, critics got it wrong, but gamers love it. Not that I'm saying there's not going to be some people that don't like this game. There are some outlets that actually gave Redfall pretty decent reviews, right? It's not one of those things where it's like a 20 and like 0 people like it. There's going to be some people probably even in this chat that like Redfall. But overall, the game is being seen is very disappointing, right? That's probably the nicest way we could put it. Very disappointing, especially considering the pedigree that Arcane has, right? They're seen as like a very good studio. And to Rude's question here, it seems to have been a failure in all aspects, even marketing. I will say that even off of the top, Redfall was met pretty negatively. Even whenever they very first debuted it at, I think it was their E3 show. And I was one of those that always tried to stay optimistic about Redfall because I really like Arcane in general. I love Prey, for example. I think that game is spectacular. And so I tried to keep an open mind about it. And there was times that I thought this game looked pretty decent, but there was never a moment where I felt like Redfall had huge waves of positive buzz. I wonder if Xbox kind of knew that this game was in a troubled state for a while because their marketing push on it didn't seem to be massive. You know, Welfare, who I'm buddies with, made a very good point to me. It's interesting that they're doing Forza Horizon 5 bundles and Diablo bundles, but there was no Redfall bundle, right? Forza Horizon 5, a game that's been out for quite a while. Diablo, which is a third-party game, they never went to bundle Redfall, which makes me wonder if, again, internally Microsoft kind of knew this thing was off the rails. I don't know that. Maybe they were super optimistic in it, but there are some signs that maybe Microsoft kind of knew, uh-oh, this isn't quite coming together. I've seen some people push very hard that, you know, Xbox should have delayed it again. Delay, you know, why didn't they give them time? The reality is guys, they gave them time. This game was originally supposed to come out in 2022. It got delayed all the way till May of 2023. It already got a substantial delay. At some point, you have to ship the game out. Now, I'm not saying that, who knows, maybe another couple months would have got it more polished, but most of the negative reviews in regards to Redfall don't seem like things that would have been fixed with a short delay, right? It's things like the AI, it's things like the empty open world, it's a ton of like core game concepts. So what, are you going to delay this game by 3 years and completely rework it? That's just not possible for a game that's already been in development for years and already had a massive delay anyways, right? This game already got delayed by like 8-9 months or whatever. So they had to ship it at some point. I'm not saying maybe Microsoft should have delayed it another month or two, but if they delayed it another month or two, that Metacritic score is not going to go from 64 to 80. That was never happening. Like, maybe they got 2 or 3 extra points. Maybe you got a 67 or 68 Metacritic. That's not really going to be a game changer, right? You're essentially, most of the negative reviews aren't about bugs. Now, I know there's some people pointing out bugs and that, you know, there is a bit of an issue like that, but most of it's just the core game. People just don't like the game, and that's not something you're fixing with a small delay. So, you know, the second part of your question here, Rude, what changes would you like to see in Xbox's strategy, especially if ABK deal falls apart? I'm going to be an outlier in a lot of the core Xbox community. I hope the ABK deal does fall apart. I don't want Microsoft to get them anymore because I think Microsoft's got problems in their own thing before taking on thousands and thousands of more developers and multiple more studios. They are struggling to even manage what they have right now. That situation only becomes even more intense once you take on an entire another publisher's worth of people. So again, if they get ABK, it's not the end of the world to me, whatever, but they got to make some serious soul searching, I think, right now within Xbox. Now, Redfall by itself reviewing low isn't the end of the world, right? It's not like the Xbox gaming division was like, everything rests on Redfall, right? This was never a game that was going to be like a game changer for Xbox. And the reason it's blowing up so much isn't because of Redfall itself. It's because of the overall feeling in the gaming community about Xbox as a whole, right? It's not that it's specifically Redfall. It's that Redfall is the first AAA Xbox game since Halo Infinite. Think about how long ago, guys, Halo Infinite launched. There has not been a AAA Xbox first-party game since then. We've had Hi-Fi Rush since then. Hi-Fi Rush wasn't this giant AAA game with the big marketing budget announced years in advance, right? It's a smaller title that was literally stealth dropped. It's been all the way since Halo Infinite, more than a year, since there's been a AAA Xbox game. This is the first one that comes out since then, and it scores that low, and a lot of people actually playing the game also don't like it. So that massively elevates how big of an issue it is, right? If Microsoft has a huge wave of positive momentum right now, Redfall scoring low, yeah, some people would make fun of it online, they would tease it or whatever, but it wouldn't be this wave that we're seeing of like, it's not a small thing, guys. My tweet about the reviews, look at this. I tweet review roundups all the time. They get like maybe 100,000, 200,000 views, something like that. Do you guys want to know what my Redfall view count is right now on this tweet? Right now, this thing's at 1.3 million views on Twitter for a review roundup. 1.3 million views. That's by far the most views ever I've had on a review roundup. And that's because all of these things we're talking about, right? It's about the whole state of Xbox. It's not Redfall specifically. It's that this has become kind of like the lightning rod of this whole thing. So, you know, Xbox's strategy, what they need to do, we're going to go into a ton of this. There's tons and tons and tons of questions. So I don't want to just spend all of it on just Rudes because I know you guys are going to have a ton of points to make. But they got a soul search, man. They've got to really start delivering quality games consistently. Hi-Fi Rush is amazing. It's going to be in my top 10 games of this year. I think it's one of the best Xbox first-party games in years. But Hi-Fi Rush by itself is not enough. It has to be consistent. It has to be regular, like releases of quality content regularly. So, like I said, I'm going to go to the next question now. I have way more thoughts on Xbox's strategy and stuff, but I want to give other people chances to get their voices heard too. Marcos V here with an 11 super chat. How are you doing, Mr. Benji? I'm doing pretty good, Marcos. I hope you're doing good as well. Things are pretty positive in my camp right now. It's May. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. As you guys all know, I have mental health struggles. I've been battling really, really hard since February of this year, by the way. It's been a rough stretch, but I'm fighting, and I hope anyone that is also having mental health struggles is doing okay. Thank you for that super chat. All right, more super chats coming in. Jeremy Craves here with a 5 super chat. Redfall was in development for PlayStation. Was it an obligation from ZeniMax that Microsoft got across the finish line? And that is your first ever super chat to the channel, Jeremy. Thank you so much. So, was it an obligation from ZeniMax that Microsoft got across the finish line? I'm not 100% sure what you mean by this, Jeremy. In regards to why it was canceled for PlayStation, that's pretty much simple because, you know, any game that Microsoft buys, like the studio of, if it had a PlayStation version in development at some point, that's going to get canceled, right? Except for very rare, you know, outliers, like if they actually get Activision Blizzard, of course, Call of Duty is going to stay on PlayStation. You know, you still see Minecraft on PlayStation, but by and large, the vast majority of any acquisitions that, you know, Microsoft's going to make, or Sony for that matter, if they're developing a version for the other platform, that's probably going to be canceled. So that's the main reason why it was canceled. Now, an obligation from ZeniMax that Microsoft got across the finish line. I'm not sure what you mean by that, if I'm being honest. I'm just not 100% sure what you're asking there, so I apologize. But if you mean like, why didn't they cancel it? Because I've seen some people be like, Redfall should have just been canceled, you know, because again, I really don't think this was a surprise to Microsoft. I'm highly doubtful of that, you know, Aaron and Phil and Sarah Bond and all them are shocked by these scores. I'd be surprised. Usually I've even had devs, and you've seen devs publicly say this, they usually know, like when they're getting ready to ship a game, what the issues are. Usually the dev team themselves know. Maybe the reviews sometimes are a bit of a surprise, but usually most devs themselves and the publisher kind of knows, uh-oh, this is coming in hot. This is probably not going to review great. Like they're usually aware of that situation. And I've seen some people be like, hey, if Microsoft knew that Redfall was going to just not be a good game, why didn't they outright cancel it? And here's the thing. Can you guys imagine the headlines that would have come out if Microsoft buys Arcane, right, who's a beloved developer? Their games don't sell huge, but like, you know, Dishonored has a hardcore following. Prey has a hardcore following. Deathloop got incredibly high reviews and was even nominated for like Game of the Year at tons of places. Could you imagine the headlines that would have come out if they never showed Redfall? Like if they were just like, oof, this game's not looking good, and they would have canceled it. The headlines that would have come out, Microsoft buys Arcane and instantly cancels their vampire title. People would have melted down. They would have said Microsoft is the big evil corporation. Microsoft's so terrible. They're buying a beloved developer and instantly canceling their projects. It would have been quite literally end of the world Armageddon scenario on forums and Twitters about how Microsoft's evil. So they basically had to ship this game no matter what, even if Microsoft themselves thought the game was in a bad state, because I think, yeah, this hurts Image a lot right now, but I think that would have been really bad, a really bad look if they would have done that. So I'm not 100% sure if that's what you're asking, but I have seen some people be like, Microsoft should have outright canceled it. And I think that's the main reason. I think the main reason is, first of all, the game was already in development for years, so you would have probably taken a pretty hefty, just straight up loss on the game. And also those headlines would be brutal. You know, Phil Spencer and Microsoft cancels beloved developers' new vampire title. I mean, can you imagine? It would have been very bad. Very, very bad. Another super chat coming in here from George Corona III with a 10. Thank you so much, George Corona. Seeing Xbox-centric writers starting to worry about Starfield, which is now valid after this debacle. If Starfield somehow was amazing, 10 out of 10, is that even still enough to get Xbox on track this generation? Well, here's my first poll idea, guys, because I am curious to your thoughts on this. So we're going to have a poll go up. All right, and here is my poll for you. If Starfield is in rough shape, should Microsoft delay it? All right. Yes. Quality must deliver. Maybe. It depends how bad it is. And no, Xbox needs Starfield ASAP. Okay, I'm asking you guys, if Starfield is in rough shape, should Microsoft delay it? Yes, like no matter what, even if it's slightly sketchy, the quality must deliver. Like absolutely no matter what, must be 10 out of 10 game. Maybe it just depends on how bad it is. Or no, don't delay it even if it's in rough shape. Xbox needs Starfield ASAP. All right. Now, to the question from George Corona. If Starfield is amazing, is it enough? And it doesn't make sense that people are worried about Starfield. I would say yes, it makes sense people are worried about Starfield because this is how Xbox has now conditioned the audience to be. And that is an unfortunate situation to be in. Now, I know this chat right now is going to feel like Xbox doom and gloom. And believe me, I am tired of getting on this chat every week for the last couple months being mostly negative about Xbox. I was super positive on them at the beginning of the year. They had what I thought was an excellent developer direct. I thought Hi-Fi Rush was just such a huge win kicking off the year. But we got to be honest, the last couple months have just been nearly nothing but negative news for Xbox, right? Whether it's the whole battles going on over Activision Blizzard and the blocks coming through from FTC and CMA, whether it's, the terrible reviews, frankly, now coming in for Redfall. There's just a lot of negativity around Xbox right now. So believe me, nothing would make me more happy than coming on this chat and being extremely positive and celebrating how good of a place Xbox is in. But that is just a lie because they're not. There are some good things going on for Xbox, but there's also some really bad things going on. Now, so again, does it make sense why people are worried about Starfield? It does make sense, right? It wouldn't be that big of a deal if Microsoft had consistently been showing you quality for the last 16 months, right? Because then I would say, yeah, that is a little silly, right? Let's say that 2022, Microsoft had 3 amazing games that were AAA. They had Pentiment, I know, but that was a very, very small title. We're talking like, if Microsoft had 3 huge AAA quality games in 2022, and Hi-Fi Rush was a huge hit, but now Redfall got bad reviews. Should we all be panicked about Starfield? I'd be like, absolutely not. Look at all of the big hits. Look at all of the successes they've had over the last year. Sometimes a game's not going to deliver. The issue is, though, is that's not what's going on. We had an entire year with no AAA releases from Xbox, and then the very first one that comes out is down in the 60s. So yeah, I get why people would be worried about Starfield because Microsoft has essentially put themselves into this position. Now, Starfield might be in amazing shape. I have no idea. It could be literally tracking to be a 10 out of 10 game. But does it make sense that people, even in the Xbox community, are worried? Sure. It absolutely makes sense with what's going on lately. Now, if Starfield is amazing and a 10 out of 10, is that enough to get Xbox on track? It's an absolutely good start. And this is one area where I disagree with my buddy Dom's playing. I'm a big fan of Dom. I think Dom's a super smart guy. But he had made a tweet and a follow-up tweet about how Starfield, isn't that big of a deal really. And it's, it's just a game and a huge library of games. And Xbox is all about Game Pass and ecosystem. And I think one thing that my buddy Dom is forgetting is that games drive that ecosystem. So I agree with him that no individual game makes or breaks Xbox, right? Because that was his first tweet. Then he had a follow-up tweet where he's talking about how it's not even a massive deal, and I just hardcore disagree with that. But that's okay. People are going to disagree with things that I say too. But so no individual game makes or breaks Xbox, 100%. The problem is a consistent pattern can make or break Xbox. And Starfield's incredibly important because for the exact same reason why these reviews for Redfall are blowing up the internet. And that is because it's a consistent pattern. okay, if you go through all of 2022 without a single AAA game from Xbox, and then you have Redfall review in the 60s, and then let's say Starfield misses expectations as well, and that's like a 60s or 70s, yeah, that's a disaster. There's just no other way around it. Games drive ecosystem, and at that point, if you are looking at the Xbox ecosystem, you got to be looking at it with real skeptical eyes. Because what's the main draw of Game Pass, guys? I say this all of the time. All of the third-party drops, cool, of course. All of the indie titles that hit the service, cool, of course. What is the main selling point of Game Pass? I know it, you know it, we all know it. It's getting big Xbox first-party games day one. That's the main sell. You're getting these big, giant AAA $70 games just included with your subscription. You start looking at Game Pass and you start being like, and again, this is a what-if scenario. Starfield might be a 10 out of 10. But if Starfield was to disappoint, you have to start looking at Game Pass and being like, if the main selling point is the Xbox first party, and I went a whole year without a AAA game hitting that service, and then we go into the next year, and 2 out of 3 of the Xbox first-party games, like the big, giant AAA ones that hit the service that are exclusive in Starfield and Redfall, are both poorly received, why am I subscribing to this service? You see what I'm saying? And that's where my disagreement with Dom is. It is about library. It is about ecosystem. But if Starfield fails, that means another sign that the ecosystem's in trouble. You know what I mean? So he's right in that, and this, I'm not trying to target Dom. I'm only using this as an example of this overall Starfield discussion. Yeah, Xbox doesn't live and die by Starfield, but Starfield itself is almost the canary in the coal mine. You know what I mean? If it's a poorly received game, it's just continuing this trajectory that we're seeing for first party. That's kind of the thing I'm trying to explain here. Now, if it is a 10 out of 10, as you're asking, is it enough to get Xbox back on track? It's a fantastic start. You know, Starfield alone is not going to be enough. Just like Hi-Fi Rush alone wasn't enough. It has to be about consistency of output. Here's the thing with Nintendo and Sony. No one's perfect. Sometimes Nintendo is going to release games that are bad and are poorly received and don't do well. It's just the reality. Sometimes it's going to happen. Sometimes Sony is going to release games that are bad, that don't review well, and that people don't like. Sometimes Nintendo and Sony are going to have dry spells. Like, you know, these are all realities. But the difference is that most years, you know that Nintendo and Sony are going to deliver mostly quality products. You know what I mean? Xbox right now, I'm not saying historically, right now, that's not true. You can't count on that, right? You cannot count on it. If you look at what happened in 2022, and if Starfield was to fail, you look at 2023, that'd be 2 years in a row that you have to start questioning things. So if it's a 10 out of 10, it is absolutely enough to get them back on track. 1,000%. But it can't just be Starfield's great and then immediately we go into another giant dry spell or poorly received games. It has to be consistent. So that's my thoughts on that. Xbox doesn't live or die based on Starfield, but Starfield is very, 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 very important right now. Very important. All right, we have another super chat coming in here. Thanks for over 200 in chat. That's the last 2 chats in a row, over 200. Absolutely incredible, guys. Thank you so much. Grizzly Bear King with a 20 super chat. Popcorn and soft drinks on me for GT movie. Ah, Grizzly Bear, that's incredibly kind of you. $20, very nice comment. Yeah, Gran Turismo is looking pretty cool, actually. You know, some of the dialogue isn't like the greatest thing in the world, but I think Gran Turismo looks like it could be a fun movie. I don't think Gran Turismo, if you guys have missed it, the trailer came out today. I don't see Gran Turismo as some sort of movie that's going to win all kinds of awards and, like, you know, get a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes or anything like that. But some of the racing scenes look pretty thrilling. You know, you wondered how are you going to make a Gran Turismo movie basing it on a real life story kind of like actually works. I think it looks fun. Yeah, I think Gran Turismo could be a pretty decent film. Again, it ain't going to be nominated for any Oscars, but it looked like a fun, good time trailer. I could see it being pretty good, you know. A solid experience at the movies, if you will. So thank you for that super chat. Thank you so much, man. Rude with another 20 super chat. Holy cow. There's a massive gap in quality of first-party games coming from Nintendo and PlayStation versus Xbox. This has been happening since Xbox One Gen. At what point do you think Microsoft takes a look at the performance of Xbox leadership? Well, my comment on this is the same that I've had every time people ask me about this stuff, where they're asking me about, Phil Spencer, if they're asking me about Matt Booty, if they're asking me about Aaron Greenberg, if they're asking me about, Pete Hines, the people at Bethesda. I do not work there. I am always going to be extremely cautious about pointing fingers at an individual person because I could be totally wrong. You know what I mean? I don't work there. I don't have all of the inside info about who's making what exact decisions, why certain things play out. I have no idea. So you guys aren't going to ever see me come on here and specifically be like, this person needs to be fired, or this person needs to be promoted, or this person needs to make this decision, because frankly, I don't know. I have no insight into exactly what's going on over there. I do think that saying that there is a gap right now in PlayStation and Nintendo versus Xbox first party specifically, I think that is undeniable. Xbox has had some tremendously good games. Forza Horizon 5, absolutely spectacular. There's a ton of Xbox games coming up I'm incredibly excited for. Starfield, Fable, Avowed, Hellblade 2. I could name you probably 10 Xbox first party games coming up I'm excited for. But if we're just looking at the current output, it's undeniable there is a gap there. And what the exact answer is, Rude, I don't know. I've said it a bunch on this chat. I think Microsoft has to get way more hands-on with these teams. Way more hands-on. And people are going to absolutely hate hearing this, because anytime you get publisher intervention, or the big bad corporation coming in telling the creatives what to do, that's always going to sound like a real bad headline off of the top, right? It's always going to look that way. But the reality is, I think Microsoft does need to be more controlling of these studios. And again, you don't want to get so controlling that it squashes not negativity, that squashes creativity. You absolutely do not want to do that sort of thing, right? You want these studios to be thriving. You want them to be healthy. You want them to be creative. You want them to try new ideas, new experiences, all of that stuff. So I don't want Microsoft to become a dictator over these studios, but I think they got to get more hands-on. These studios are taking too long to make games. I keep saying that on every chat. They're just taking too long. Taking way too long to make games. And none of this is against the devs. I respect developers massively. You guys, the things that devs do, it's amazing. The amount of stress that these developers are under at these studios is immense. The amount of work and effort that they put into these games is immense. I'm not saying you come in here and boss around these devs and the people making your games. Not at all. But there's got to be some control on scope on games. I have a sneaky suspicion that was one of the things that happened with Redfall, that it got scoped too big. I'm seeing a lot of people that are playing it say it feels like a game that clearly was going to originally be more ambitious, and a lot of things got cut. I don't know if that's true, but that's what a lot of people say they're feeling like when they play it. I don't know if there's scope issues going on at these studios. I don't know what, but I think Microsoft really needs to come in and be more hands-on some of these. Again, not to the point where it's like, you're a dictator and you must do this and this and this and this. But games are taking too long. They're just taking too long. Okay, I get that AAA games can't be made fast, but the amount of games, I made a post in my Discord about this. The amount of games that Microsoft had announced at the start of this gen that we have still literally not even seen the game. Not that the game hasn't come out. We haven't even seen it. Fable, we've never seen the game. Avowed, we've never seen the game. State of Decay 3, we've never seen the game. Perfect Dark, we've never seen the game. Contraband, we've never seen the game. I mean, it's just a list. I could keep going. There's more games than that we've literally never seen, that were announced basically right when this generation started. It's a problem, man. They've got to get games shipped. And it's got to be a consistent quality. And none of this is easy, guys. It sounds easy. Benji sitting here, some random dude in his room telling you guys, telling Xbox what they need to do. Not at all. Phil Spencer's way smarter than me. The Xbox leadership is way smarter than me. But these are problems, yeah. And I think one thing that they have to do is they got to get more hands-on at these studios, I think. But I could be wrong. I'm always willing to admit I could be wrong. But I think that's the main thing. I think the main thing is that Xbox leadership needs to get very hands-on at some of these studios. Highlander001 with a 5 super chat. Hey, Benji, great to see you, Highlander. Hope you're doing good. With how Redfall came out and other issues with Bethesda, is Pete Hines' job in jeopardy, or is it Microsoft? Again, my answer to that is the exact same I just said. I am not going to single out Pete Hines because I have no visibility to the decision making and why certain things play out at Bethesda and Xbox. You just won't ever see me do it because I don't know. I really don't know. I can't give you that sort of perspective. Now, I'm trying to think how I would phrase this. I can't think of a way to phrase it that's not like, yeah, I can't. I just can't even comment on that. Other than to say, like, I never want to see anyone fired, ever. Like, I never want to see anyone fired, and I don't want to see Pete Hines fired. So I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how things play out. But I'm never going to comment on an individual person because I just don't have visibility there. But I do appreciate the super chat. So right now on that poll that I'm running about Starfield, is Starfield in rough shape? If Starfield is in rough shape, should Microsoft delay it? 79% of you, so almost 80%, say yes, quality must deliver. I agree. Listen, I don't want to see Starfield delayed. It's already been delayed massively. That game's too important. They can't ship that thing if it's rough, and we don't know. This is a what-if poll, guys. Starfield right now could be in incredible shape. That's why it says if. But I agree with you. Nearly 80%, overwhelmingly, yes, quality must deliver. 16% say maybe, it depends how bad it is. And only 5% say no, Xbox needs Starfield ASAP. I agree they need it as soon as possible while the quality is still there. But, yeah, I agree with the overwhelming nearly 80% that say yes, quality must deliver. I agree with you guys. Split89 with a 2 super chat. After Redfall, what are the chances Hellblade 2 drops this year? Well, I don't know if you guys saw, but Microsoft seems to be teasing that. There's a new Game Pass ad that came out that shows a bunch of like games advertised in the Game Pass ad. And I saw Clobral, I think that's how you say his name. I saw him say that every game featured in the trailer has a 2023 announced release date, but Hellblade 2. So it's a little suspicious that Hellblade's there. There have been rumblings for a while that Hellblade 2 is targeting late this year. Split89, I would say if the game will be ready to go, that could be an amazing 1-2 combo to get Xbox back on track. I mean, if they really get Starfield and Hellblade 2 this year, and let's say both of them are high-quality games, that really kicks things back into high gear. So I would say if Hellblade 2 is in a good state, absolutely they should get that thing out this year. They need a wave of positive momentum. But again, they shouldn't rush it if it's not. So it really depends. A lot of things are lining up that Hellblade 2 really might be this holiday. I think you could put that thing in November and be completely fine, or October. Starfield's going to be September, but it's the very beginning of September. You could have more than a month between Starfield and the next, Hellblade 2, and those would be fine, if you give them a full month. You would not want to launch Hellblade 2 2 or 3 weeks after Starfield. That would be a disaster, in my opinion, but a full month, that gives people a lot of time to play Starfield. Yeah, I think that's totally fine. So the chances, I would say it's looking good, but we'll have to see. But that could be a huge boon for them. If they have Starfield and Hellblade 2 back to back, let's just say they both get very strong reviews, that's a heck of a way to recover from the 2022 they had and, the early start to 2023. So that'd be great. That'd be great, Split End. All right, another super chat. So many super chats today. Kilver with the $9.99 super chat. June 11th is the most important day for Xbox in a long time. Seems like we say that every year. I know we do. It seems like there's no sense of urgency from the Xbox division in such a disappointing and frustrating gen so far. I agree, and I also agree with the statement that it feels like we say that every year for Xbox, unfortunately. But here's my thoughts on what they should do at the June showcase. You got to go all out. You got to go all out. And when I say all out, I mean all out. It can't be this next 12 months thing. You show stuff even further than that. I don't think it's one of those scenarios that you want to see a situation with like the games that I talked about where some of these games disappeared for 3 years and we've never seen them again. You don't want to go that far out. I would not be showing anything at this showcase that's 3 years away. But they need to really go guns blazing at this showcase for a few reasons. First of all, because there are so many games, like I just mentioned, that we've never seen again. If Fable's still not here, like you still don't see Fable at all, you got to start wondering, what is the state of that game? I mean, it's been in development for years. Not like 1 or 2. We're talking that game's been in development for like 5 years. If you still don't see it, what is going on with Fable, man? I mean, if Perfect Dark's still not here, again, it's been announced for years. You got to start wondering, what exactly is the state of Perfect Dark? So first of all, there's that. You just have so many games that you have announced that we've never seen again. If you're really not going to still show them, you have to wonder, what is going on with these games? So first of all, there's that. Second of all, we just have to be frankly honest that Sony right now is really outpacing Xbox, not just in terms of hardware sales, guys, in terms of revenue, in terms of just like across the board, just about everything. The only real advantage you can give Microsoft over Sony right now, and I'm not one of those guys that it's always about a battle and, who's number one. I've always said a company can be in second or third place and still be extremely healthy. And there were some healthy signs in Xbox's most recent earnings. Despite hardware being a disaster, their content and services looked good. Their overall revenue looked good. But in general, it's starting to feel like this gen's turning into a blowout, which is not something I would have predicted a year and a half ago. A year and a half ago, I would have been like, man, this gen's going to be extremely competitive. Like, I really thought we were headed into an extremely competitive generation. Xbox had just so many studios through all those acquisitions. Xbox Series X hardware is just so nice. I feel like their marketing at the beginning of this generation was just absolutely on point. I thought we were about to head into a very competitive, incredibly strong generation, and it was that way for a while. For a while, Xbox was doing tremendous. But it does feel like things are starting to slip. And PlayStation feels like it is starting to absolutely explode. And there are heavy rumors that PlayStation's about to have a massive showcase, maybe one of the biggest they've had in many, many years, towards the end of this month. So that's another reason, right? You already have PlayStation with incredible momentum at the moment. If they come out with a massive showcase right before yours, I mean, you have to be ready to fight back. I know that Phil Spencer a lot wants to, on Twitter do the, and I actually agree with him for the most part. So whenever I say this, don't take it the wrong way. But he likes to do the positivity, we're all gamers, we all can get along, different corporations thing. Absolutely true. I agree with every single one of those points. But at the end of the day, there is still strong competition as well in this space. And you got to be competitive. And, if you have PlayStation absolutely accelerating, you have a massive showcase from PlayStation right before your own, and you have all of these Xbox games that haven't been seen for years. Yeah, that June 11th showcase, they have to go all out. I would empty I don't know how to phrase it. I'd just be like, everything that we think we have coming in this next 2 years that's in a good state, like the game's in a good state, things are coming together, I would drop it all, dude. I would just go all out. Again, not too far. I wouldn't show something, hey, this game is like, I would not do like a CG concept trailer for a game 3 years away. You know, people have kind of had enough of that. But anything I could show that's in a remotely decent state, it would just all floodgates come out because they need it. Johnny G22 with a 19.99 super chat. Hey Benji, first time donating. Well, thank you so much, Johnny G. I very much appreciate that, man. What are your thoughts on the release of Starfield? Do you think this negative attention on Redfall makes Xbox delay Starfield? Always love your live chats, and I hope all is good. I think it makes them take a long look at it if the game's not in a good state. You know, I just don't see how you could follow Redfall up with another game that's in a bad state. If it is, you know what I mean? So, Johnny G, what I would say is if Starfield's in rough shape, which, again, we have no reason to believe yet, guys. This game could be a 10 out of 10, the most polished, incredible. This could be the next Skyrim, right? So I'm not telling you that it's in a bad state. But if things are looking a little rough after Redfall, yeah, man, if I'm Xbox leadership, I take a long look at it. I don't instantly delay it, right? You don't want to panic react, because that's another thing. It's easy to get caught up in panic and get caught up in the heat of the moment narratives. So you wouldn't want to do that. You wouldn't want to, because this game is still, we're in May. You know, you still got June, July, August. You still have more than 3 months. You know, let's see how things are coming together. I don't think you just instantly be like, oh my God, we gotta delay this game. But, you know, right now, Starfield should be in the polishing stages, right? It should be content complete at this point. It should be really, we're polishing things up. And a lot can change in those last few months. You've seen many developers come out and say that. You've seen Cory Barlog talk about how God of War really started to come together at the very end of the dev cycle. You've seen Neil Druckmann talk about how that was the case with The Last of Us, where, you know, things were sketchy at times, really up until that last minute, and things really come together. Those last couple months of polish can make a huge world of difference. You're not massively changing the content, but getting things really just clicking and coming together. That can really start to happen fairly late in this dev cycle. So I wouldn't say they instant panic and just delay Starfield right this moment, unless it's in very rough shape. But I would say, you know, if that thing's scheduled for September, I'd say by July, if this thing still ain't coming together perfectly, push it another month or two. Not till the end of the, you know, not until next year necessarily, you know, but if you got to push it to November from September, if you need those couple months of polish to really make it come together, you do it. Yeah, you do it. Timmer72299 with a 10 super chat. Hi, Benji. I've heard from the former chief financial officer at Providence Equity Partners that they owned a majority share in ZeniMax. What are your thoughts? Plus, keep being awesome. I don't really honestly know a ton about all of these like private equity things. Not really my area of expertise. Not something I really follow, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I'm more concerned with just the major players in the main gaming market and game sales. So I don't have a ton I can offer there, man, in terms of like perception on Providence equity or anything like that, other than they probably got a freaking ton of money. If you're saying that they owned a majority share in ZeniMax like during the actual sale, whenever they sold to Microsoft, well, those boys got paid. But other than that, I'll be honest, it's not really my field. I don't really look at that sort of thing. So I can't offer additional comments, but thank you for the super chat, Timmer, and keep doing the great work you do on Twitter. My God, so many super chats today. I apologize to everyone else, but it might be a super chat only day today. We'll see, but it's just, there's so many super chats. The professor with a 550 super chat. I know the focus is Microsoft, but notice how just launched poorly performing games leveraged Unreal Engine 4. I wonder how much the engine is an issue. It's a good point. You know, I saw, I believe this was Arcane's first time ever on Unreal Engine. I believe. Isn't Redfall an Unreal Engine game? I believe I saw people saying that their, you know, obviously their other games were on their own engine, the Void engine or whatever that thing was called. But Redfall, I believe, is Unreal Engine, and we've seen a lot of games, especially on PC, having a ton of issues on Unreal Engine lately. Tons. It's kind of crazy. Could that engine change have caused an issue with Arcane in their development cycle? It is absolutely possible. Anytime that you're switching engines, I mean, dude, that's going to cause some learning curves. And I know Unreal Engine is a very ubiquitous engine. I would say probably most devs in the industry at least have like a cursory understanding of Unreal Engine. There's probably not many devs in the industry that just know nothing about Unreal, but that's still a lot different than if your company's history, you've been building it on your own engine, right? Even if you know some stuff about Unreal, if you're completely switching engines, that's going to change things, right? It's going to change how you pipeline and develop things. So could that have been part of the issue with the dev cycle of Arcane or of Redfall? Sure. Yeah, it absolutely could have been. You know, we don't know, but an engine switch could have been part of that problem. Yeah, it could have been. I don't know. You know, you'd have to ask Arcane that, and I doubt they'd be willing to talk about it, but it could be. Yeah, Unreal Engine could have been part of the issue. Dead Planet here with a 5 super chat. Did everyone forget Project Belfry? I feel like we're caught up on Forza and Starfield while forgetting Xbox probably is releasing more we don't know. Well, Dead Planet, there's a very easy answer to that. They've never shown it. This is just yet another game in the giant pile of Xbox games that have never been shown. It's easy to forget about Project Belfry. The game's never even been officially announced. You know what I mean? Like, that's the problem with Xbox right now. You know, if it's a bummer feeling negative on them. But this is yet another on the giant pile, Dead Planet, of announced or unannounced rumored Xbox games that are coming that have just never been seen. This is the boat they've put themselves in, right? This isn't anything that anyone else did to them. Microsoft themselves have put them in this boat. So I'm sure people will be very excited for Project Belfry once it's actually shown. But it's hard for people to be excited and hyped for a game they've never seen whenever there's also like 10 or 15 other Xbox games that have never been seen because they either aren't announced or they're CG trailers. You know, it's just another on the pile. There's a lot I'm excited for. Project Belfry is one that to me sounds amazing, but no one's ever seen it. Mr. Real Shane with a 2 super chat. Tears of the Kingdom looks massive. Any critic and sales predictions? Yeah, Tears of the Kingdom is going to be ridiculously huge. The biggest Zelda launch of all time by far. Sales and critic predictions. My prediction with critics is it has more than a 90 Metacritic. What I've been saying is I think Tears of the Kingdom is going to review slightly worse than Breath of the Wild. Not massively so, but Breath of the Wild, I believe, is at a 97 Metacritic. That's an unbelievably high bar to reach. I am still expecting 90 plus. I think this comes in slightly lower. I'm going to guess like a 92 to 95, somewhere in there, but I don't think it can hit 97 again. If they do, absolutely amazing. But I'm going to predict slightly lower reviews than Breath of the Wild, but I mean, 92 to 95 Metacritic is still absolutely insane. So it's not like I'm predicting bad reviews. I'm predicting incredible reviews, but just a bit below Breath of the Wild. Sales predictions, it's hard to say. I'm still sticking with it doesn't quite hit Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which shipped a ridiculous amount. What was the first quarter again? It was over 20 million. How much did that thing ship? Yeah, 20.61 million for the quarter. So I'm going to predict slightly lower for its initial shipment, and I could be wrong, but, you know, Scarlet and Violet had the advantage of having 2 versions of the game. It also released during the holiday season, and 20 million would be 2/3 of the lifetime sales of Breath of the Wild, which would be insanity if it managed that. So I'm going to predict a little bit below what Scarlet and Violet managed, but still massive, and by far the biggest Zelda launch of all time. All right, I'm going to come back to these super chats in just a minute, but I got to hit some member questions because that's what people pay for these memberships. So don't worry, anyone with a super chat in there, I'm going to hit your super chat, but I really want to make sure that I get member questions answered as well. And I've now lost the top of the chat, but I took pictures of it because I knew that this would happen. So let me hit a couple member questions from earlier in the chat. Joseki had a member question that said, Benji, I watched your Mario movie video and I personally disagree on two things. One, don't think Nintendo will make a live action movie of their own IP and risk associating their characters with real actors. As we know, the next Ezra Miller case is inevitable. Two, I think Metroid's turn will come after a Luigi spinoff and Animal Crossing slash Splatoon. Yeah, those aren't impossible, Joseki. So I made a video about what Nintendo could do next with the movies because Mario's over $1 billion, so clearly they're going to do more. Joseki, I don't think either one of your points are off base there. Metroid was always a bit of a stretch for me. I included that more as like a maybe, because if you remember, like each movie I said if it's a lock or a maybe, and I had mentioned how Super Mario Brothers sequel is a lock. I think a Zelda movie is a lock. I had said that I think Donkey Kong Country is very likely. I didn't go for a lock, but very likely. And I had said that Metroid's more like a maybe sort of scenario. So I don't disagree that Metroid could, if it even does happen, it'll be much later than like a Splatoon or anything like that. That's entirely possible. I just kind of included it in there as something they could do to be more differentiate the products. As for your part about live actors, it's entirely possible. That's why I said, like with Zelda, that could go either way. I could see it being live action or I could see it being animated. If I was Nintendo, I would do some live action projects just to differentiate it. I think Nintendo could run a risk if they just start pumping out tons of animated movies to burn people out fast. You don't want to ever do that. So that's one thing I would be cautious of. If they're going to start releasing like 3 animated movies every single year, that'll be awesome for a couple years, but I don't know how long that's going to last. I think if you differentiate with some live action stuff, it just gives, things a different feel. But again, I don't think it's unrealistic you saying that that they might not do it. Homishley Ford had a member question. Hello, Benji. Things are looking rough for Xbox, aren't they? Bethesda Game Studios really have to nail Starfield, or I can see Microsoft being severely disappointed with Xbox. Yeah, that's an interesting thing we haven't talked about yet, is Microsoft's perspective on all of this. We keep talking about Xbox, but you have to remember that Xbox is a division within Microsoft. And you have to wonder how Satya Nadella is going to feel, the CEO of the company, considering the billions they're investing in Xbox, if they aren't going to consistently get well-received games. It's a great point there from Homishley Ford. I absolutely agree. If they, I think it's entirely possible that if Xbox does not get on track this year, that you see Satya really step in, if I'm being honest with you. I could see that. I could absolutely see that. And whenever I say step in, I don't think that necessarily means that you see Satya come in and fire a bunch of people. But at the end of the day, Xbox is a division within Microsoft, and it's one that they're not slightly investing in. The investment within Xbox this generation is higher than it's ever been. Billions and billions of dollars. Satya is going to want to see that pay off. So if we got to a crazy scenario where, Starfield was poorly received, you have to wonder how Satya is going to respond to that. Let me see. Was there any other member questions before the chat? Brazil Anubis 3 had a member question. Benji, what do you think was the underlying issue for the bad performance of Redfall? Number 2, if execs are the issue, how viable would it be for Bethesda to spin off? Interesting. And can you talk about why do you think Respawn is killing it with their game releases and EA publishing awesome games this year? Okay. A couple actually great questions here from Brazil Anubis. The underlying issues for Redfall, we kind of already talked. Actually, we kind of talked about it, but not really. Unreal Engine Switch could have been part of that. Part of it could have been a scoping issue. You always have to wonder about how big the scope is for things. And another big issue probably was, they were trying to do a game that they've never, quite literally never made a game like this before. And that doesn't mean that I don't think devs shouldn't try new things. Look at what Guerrilla accomplished with trying Horizon, which was something nothing like what they'd done before. Guerrilla was this first person, gritty kill zone developer. Everything was gray and like black and brown. And they went from that to like this hugely bright, colorful, third person, open world game. Literally nothing like it. And some people might like Horizon or dislike Horizon, but in terms of financial success, Horizon utterly has destroyed the Killzone franchise. So pivoting from Killzone to Horizon was a huge win for them. Whether you like Horizon or not, it has massively overperformed what Killzone ever accomplished. So I don't think this is a message like, studios should be afraid to try something new. But again, it is something new, and that's not going to always work, right? It's not going to always turn out like Horizon did for Guerrilla. Sometimes you're going to get a scenario like this, where, they'd never made a truly open world game like this. They'd never made a big co-op multiplayer game like this. And I'm sure that caused some development headache as well. Now, in terms of the EA stuff, can I comment on EA and Respawn? Yeah, it's a bit of a bummer, the tech issues on Jedi Survivor, because literally I'm seeing nearly unanimously from people playing this game that outside of the tech issues, they absolutely love it. I have a ton of people I follow on Twitter that are playing this game right now that are like, the game is literally incredible. It's just a bummer that how we talked about how I'm not sure delaying Redfall would have massively improved reviews, because most of people's issues with reviews in Redfall are things that are not easily changed, right? It was things like AI. It was things like the empty open world. It was like core design issues. That's actually not the case for Jedi Survivor. It's actually like a complete flip. I am mostly seeing people absolutely raving about the content of this game. The problem is the performance. So it's like a complete inverse, where EA should have delayed Jedi Survivor again. They absolutely should have pushed Jedi Survivor off another month or two, because that could have made a huge difference in performance. It really, really can, in terms of polish, right? Because you don't need to change the core content of the game. Redfall would have needed drastic changes to the core content of the game. Jedi Survivor did not need that, because people mostly are loving the game outside of the performance issues. So EA should have pushed that. But overall, I do think you have to really give EA respect for the big turnaround that they've done on single player games. I sent out a tweet about this that did pretty well. It got like, I think almost 9,000 likes or something. You look at Dead Space, an extremely quality Dead Space remake. You look at Jedi Survivor, which outside of performance issues, and I'm not brushing off performance issues, it should have never launched in the state that it did, particularly on PC. But again, the game itself, fantastic. And you look at, they have a third single player only game on the way with that shooter, Immortals of Avium or something. You got to give them a shout out. You got to give them some respect. EA have really turned around on single player games. Okay, that was all of the member questions that I could see that I took pictures of before the chat. What other members have not gotten a question answered yet? Let's see. Joseki's gotten one. Highlander's gotten one. Perfect Shogun has not. So here's a member question from Perfect Shogun. Oh, and I'm starting to see badges come in. Cool. So it used to be, if you were a member, guys, your name was just now highlighted in green. Now, people that have been member for a full month, because I turned on memberships a month ago, you guys now have badges next to your name. Cool. I'm eventually going to try and make those like more custom. Right now, they're just the colors that they were like, it's like the standard YouTube one. But shout out to the members, guys. I can now see those of you that have been members for at least a full month. So thank you guys. Perfect Shogun's been a member for a full month. Hammersley Ford's been a member for a full month. Splendid89's been a member. Joseki, super cool. Thanks, guys. Perfect Shogun here. Why is Xbox/Bethesda putting Redfall out there to take a stray bullet for no reason? Well, Perfect Shogun, it comes back to the things I keep saying. I don't think a delay would have changed anything with Redfall. You would have to quite literally rework the game. And in order to do that, this game would have needed to be delayed by years. That's not an exaggeration either, by the way. They would have had to change the core game. And at some point, enough money had already been put into it that you just have to release it. And again, the main issue with Redfall is not bugs. Not that, there aren't bugs. The main issue is the core content. They had to release it unless they delayed this game by 2 years. That's the only way you change what Redfall is. If you literally wanted to change the main things that the reviewers and players are having issues with, this game would have needed a 2-year delay and a massive increase in budget. And neither one of those things makes sense. So I actually don't fault Microsoft for releasing this game. I really don't. You can take issues with the game itself, absolutely. And you can take issues with the decision making that got Redfall to the place it is, absolutely. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying Xbox actually releasing the game, they had to. They had to. You couldn't delay this another 2 years and completely change what it is unless you wanted to spend tens and tens and tens of millions of more dollars on it, which just doesn't make sense. So, I cannot fault them for releasing it, but you can question the decision making that got Redfall to the place it is, absolutely. All right, are all member questions? Have every member gotten a question? David Taylor's a member who has not. I wanted a win for the Austin team, but they have continuously seemed to drop the ball. Even Prey, which was a good game, launched in a miserable state. It does seem that the Austin team isn't as critically well received as, what is it, Leon? Right? Isn't that the other studio? Because for anyone that doesn't know, Arcane is a 2-studio developer. They have one in Leon, I think, and the other one in Austin, and they actually completely make different games. Now, it doesn't mean there's not some crossover, like the studios don't help each other. They absolutely do. But like the team that did Deathloop and Dishonored are Arcane Leon, I believe. And then Prey and Redfall are the Austin studio. Now, Prey, I think, is absolutely incredible. Incredible. I think it's one of the most underrated games of last gen. But if you look at how it was critically received, it wasn't to the same caliber as Leon. Prey is at a 79 Metacritic. Obviously much better than Redfall. But it is interesting that the Austin studio just is not as well received as Arcane Leon. It is interesting. It is interesting. Any other members? I don't think Beaumongi has gotten a question answered. Microsoft has done this before. During 360, they acquired many studios only to have them fail to release games and eventually closing them down. This feels really familiar to me. I mean, they do just have to get games out. These studios got to start shipping games. There's no other way to put it. There's no other way to put it. They do have to start shipping games. And part of it absolutely is a pandemic impact, right? We don't want to brush that off. The pandemic absolutely affected all of these games that we're talking about that have disappeared for years. But at the end of the day, you've still seen Sony and Nintendo shipping a lot of games. So it's not like the pandemic only impacted Microsoft, right? Oh, it was only the Xbox teams that got hit by pandemic impacts. No, Sony and Nintendo did too, but they're still shipping a lot more games than Xbox is. So they do got to get games shipped. I don't know the answer, guys. I don't claim to be this all-knowing dude that just knows everything, but I don't know what the answer is, but they have to start shipping games. We're talking about these acquired studios. They got to start shipping them. All right, I think every member has had a question answered, I think. So now I can get back to those super chats, because there was a few super chats I hadn't hit yet. Trying to get to where those were. All right, Benji here. Benji with a super chat. A 5. Hi, Benji. The PS3 was in far worse shape early on than the Xbox Series. They turned it around. Can Microsoft have such turnaround this gen? Absolutely. You know, as negative as these feelings are from a lot of people, even within the Xbox community, that's one thing that makes this a little different than, I would say, the scenario we were in a year and a half ago, right? A year and a half ago, here's the thing. Anytime we're talking about video games and consoles and ecosystems and platforms, we got to address the elephant in the room, and that's that there's going to be console warriors and fanboys, right? That's just the reality of it. Whether that's PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, there's always going to be some people talking about how Xbox is doomed, or how PlayStation is doomed, or how Nintendo is doomed, right? That comes with the territory when you're talking about this stuff. But we've now hit a point where it's not just quote, quote, fanboys talking about negatively about Xbox. It is very rampant and widespread within the Xbox fan base itself in a massive way. A lot of Xbox gamers are disappointed in Xbox right now. So that's what makes things very different than we were a year and a half ago, where there was a lot of excitement within the Xbox community. But I am still very much against the idea that Xbox is doomed. So can they turn it around, as Benji's asking? Absolutely they can turn it around. But it's got to come from the games. You know, this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Sure, Xbox is an ecosystem now. Sure, Xbox has moved beyond the console. But ignoring that games is what drives the ecosystem, you're missing the forest for the trees, right? Isn't that how the statement goes? Or maybe it's the reverse. You're missing the trees for the forest. However that statement goes. Essentially, yes, it is true. Xbox is about an ecosystem. Xbox is about moving beyond console. Xbox doesn't just live or die by console sales or an individual game. Every one of these statements is true. What drives all of that ecosystem? Games. Quality games. We are talking about gaming. So you have no ecosystem without quality games. It doesn't exist. There is no huge ecosystem without quality games pushing that ecosystem. That they go hand in hand. So can Xbox turn things around? Absolutely. Xbox is not doomed. However, they have to consistently deliver high quality games. That's what turns things around. So can they turn around, Benji? How did PS3 turn around, by the way? It turned around from games like Uncharted. It turned around from games like The Last of Us, right? Which debuted on PlayStation 3. It turned around from that PlayStation 3 first party really starting to deliver, especially in the second half of that generation. Because you're absolutely right, Benji. Early on, PS3 was a disaster. It was very similar to what we're talking about with Xbox. People that weren't around for the PS3 days, super overpriced. There's not enough games on the console. There's not enough quality exclusives. And the second half of that gen very much turned around because you really saw PlayStation first party come online in a big way in the second half of that gen. So Xbox can turn around, sure. Starfield's got to release and it's got to be awesome. Hellblade 2's got to release and it's got to be awesome. Fable's got to release and it's got to be awesome. That's how they turn it around. Yes. So they can, but those games got to start delivering, man. Kellegrim. Sup, Benji? Anything you want to see on Star Wars Celebration? I'm hoping for a KOTOR remake update. Keep up the good work, man. You're killing it. Well, thanks so much, Kellegrim. Great to see you, buddy. Hadn't seen you in chat for a while. I think Star Wars Celebration already happened, didn't it? That happened in London. Like it just happened. I'm pretty sure. Oh, no, it is coming up. May 26th through 20... Oh, no, wait, that's 2022. Yeah, Star Wars Celebration just happened in London, man, from April 7th through 10th. And they announced a bunch of stuff. That's where they announced the new Rey movie. That's where they announced Jon Favreau's new movie. So I know there's another one, but that's in Japan, and that's very far away. That's next year, right? Or is it 2025? Yeah, I think it's not until 2025, which is start. Yeah, it is. So I'm not sure what you mean. Maybe you mean D23, because D23 will be a thing where there will be some Star Wars announcements as well. But yeah, I don't know about KOTOR remake update anytime soon. I hope it happens, but development on that thing got completely rebooted. And thanks for the nice comments, man, about killing it. I really appreciate it. The YouTube channel is doing much stronger than it ever has. Highlander with a 5 super chat. I am a voting shareholder. How long have I been going, by the way? I'm going to go for about another 15 minutes. I apologize to all the free questions today, but the chat was so big. It was basically just super chats and member questions. That's why as these chats get bigger, guys, if you know, I hate to do this because it sounds like I'm a salesman, like, hey guys, give me your money. But it's probably going to become more and more important that you become a member, because it's starting to get to the point where it's really just member questions and super chats. I apologize to the free questions. Again, never feel obligated to become a member or donate. I don't want to ever become a pushy guy. Ever. Don't ever feel obligated to do that. I'm just saying, specifically, if you do want to like guarantee that I get to your questions, as we're hitting this now, like 200 people in chat, like almost every stream now, you know, or at least last week and this week, and all day, definitely over 100. It's going to start becoming very challenging for me to just hit the completely free questions. It's probably going to start being just members and super chats. I'll always get to just completely free ones if I can, but it's kind of going that way. Highlander with a 5. I am a voting shareholder, and we have had discussions about if Microsoft should get out of gaming. With ABK in trouble, lack of game output, thoughts. There's always going to be some contingent within Microsoft that is kind of feeling like they should get out of gaming. That's always been there. It probably always will be there, because while gaming has become a multi-billion-dollar segment for Microsoft, at the end of the day, gaming isn't what's driving their record profits and revenue, right? It really is, you know, cloud, and they're hoping AI and all of their Office suite and Azure, and like, you know, it's really this stuff that's driving the profitability and revenue, not really gaming. I don't think though that Microsoft's going to do any like panic selling of Xbox unless things don't get on track for the rest of this cycle. If we really finish this cycle, that let's just say theoretically Series X and S hardware sales come in way below what Microsoft ever expected for this gen. If we finish this generation with Game Pass far below what they projected with subscribers, and if they get to a point where Satya doesn't feel like any of that's turning around, I actually could see a scenario where Microsoft would want to get out of gaming simply because they've spent so much money on it, trying to get massive subscribers, and clearly they want to sell consoles, guys. This idea that like hardware doesn't matter to Microsoft anymore, it's not true. It's not true. Don't believe anyone that tells you that. It's not true. Now, is it true that like they don't live or die by Xbox Series sales, and you know, specifically? Of course. Yeah, no. That's part of the reason why they're branching out. But they want that console to sell a lot. Yeah, because console really helps power the Game Pass ecosystem and all the DLC sales and all of that stuff. So they want a successful console. So I don't think we're at any risk of Microsoft pulling out of gaming for years still, because there's no way they would pull out before the cycle's over. But if we finish this gen and things are in a really bad state, which I still don't think they will, I think Microsoft's going to turn things around. But yeah, then you'd have to question things. Timmer72299 with a 5 super chat. A follow-up, but they owned a majority between 2010 and 2021. Do you think that might explain some of the decision-making at ZeniMax, Fallout 76, etc.? Oh, interesting. Do I think that private equity maybe was part of the ones pushing for like multiplayer games and some of the decisions? That is actually an interesting question, Timmer, because Redfall would have started development years ago as a multiplayer game. You saw Bethesda put out Fallout 76, which is a multiplayer game. So you're asking, you know, did they put pressure on these teams to release multiplayer? Dude, that's actually a great observation, Timmer. It is entirely possible. ZeniMax was a privately held company, so we don't have a ton of visibility behind the decision-making that was happening there. You know, publicly traded companies, they have to respond to, the market, right? They got to come out and do their earnings call every quarter and explain the moves they're making and answer tough questions. I'm on every earnings call, and you always have them getting questions about decision making. Bethesda was, and ZeniMax was privately held, which means we didn't get that sort of visibility. So good point, Timmer. Could some of that decision making been coming from them? The private equity wanting to make money on their investment? Could be. Could be. It very well could be, Timmer. That's a good observation, man. Rude with a 5 super chat. With modern games taking as long as they do, Xbox only has so many opportunities to turn things around. With modern games taking... Yeah, I mean, that is the part of the problem. That is part of the problem, is that... Here's the thing. That is supposed to be part of why owning so many studios helps offset that, right? Because we know games take a long time. So whenever I'm saying Xbox has got to start getting these games shipped, that doesn't mean I'm like trying to pressure like, hey, Playground, you got to ship Fable 3 years after you start development. No. That would just be unrealistic to be like, every studio needs to be shipping a game every 3 years. No. So let me be very clear about that whenever I keep saying, like, these studios got to ship games. I'm not saying you all got to ship, Grand Theft Auto-sized games in 3 years or else, because that's just stupid. That's not going to work nowadays. I do think, listen, the industry's doomed if AAA games consistently take 6 years or more to get out. And I'm not exaggerating. If we get to a point where almost all studios are taking 6 years to ship games, AAA gaming is doomed. I'm just being honest with you. Many studios are going to go under. Many studios are going to go under. It's not sustainable. It is not sustainable that all the industry just takes 6 years to make games. It's not sustainable. It will never work. It will never work. Industry's doomed if we get to that point. And it's not hyperbole. It can't work. The financials don't work if every studio is taking 6 years to put a game out. It just doesn't work. It flat out does not work. So that has to come down, man. And there are many Xbox teams that are looking at 6-year dev cycles right now or more. It can't happen. It can't happen. It cannot happen. And people are going to be like, well, Benji, that's what it takes to make the game the size that I want to make it. Then you have to scope down. You got to make a smaller game. You've seen Sean Layden talk about this. And Sean Layden is not a dumb man. You've seen Sean Layden talk about how this is such a threat to the industry, how long games take and how expensive the budgets are. And he is absolutely correct. The longer a game's in development, the automatically price tag goes up on the budget of the game. So these are not easy things to answer. These are not easy fixes, but like, yeah, they can't all be taking 6 years, man. So, I mean, you're right. You're right to a degree. Absolutely. JCat says, time to become a full-time content creator, Benji-Sales. Well, listen, I can just be completely upfront and honest with you guys about it. So, last month was the biggest paycheck I've ever gotten from YouTube, right? So I'll be completely transparent with you guys. I have no issues being transparent with you because you guys donate in Super Chat. You guys donate to become members. And here's why that's not possible for me, JCat. So last month, and again, don't take this as pressure to donate at all. I could never get a Super Chat again, and I could never get another member, and I'm going to still be doing these streams. But I want to be very transparent with you because I've had people tell me that sort of thing and be like, Benji, you just need to do this full time. And I so appreciate JCat. But last month, which was the biggest paycheck I've ever gotten from YouTube in my 4 years on the platform, I think. I think I made my YouTube 4 years ago, something like that. It was $300 for a month. That's what the exact amount was. It was actually $300 and some change. And I massively appreciate that. That seriously helps fund my gaming stuff. I set aside all of the money that I make from YouTube, and I use that money to buy games, which helps my coverage because I'm an entry-level retail worker, so I would barely be buying games just every once in a while if I was only living off of that. So all of your guys' super chats and memberships, that all goes to games, which helps fuel my coverage. But that was the biggest, right? So most months it's not close to that. It was that big because I had memberships for the first time. So most months on my YouTube channel, I pull in about $150-ish per month. And that's nowhere close enough for me to live off of. So I would love to be a full-time content creator. I would love it. But, you know, I have a 4-year-old daughter. I got a mortgage. I would have to make vastly more money, you know, to ever do that sort of thing. My biggest paycheck ever was $300 for a month. And most months it's about 150-ish, you know, maybe 150, 175. YouTube takes 30% of every super chat and every membership. So this isn't me being ungrateful. I'm grateful for if I made $5 a month, I'd be grateful. I'm just explaining why, because I see people all the time be like, Benji, just go full-time content creation. I'm nowhere close. Nowhere close. I would have to make vastly more money than I make. But I appreciate every super chat and every membership. Okay, we're wrapping this up in the next like 5 minutes. I'm going to spam through a couple free ones because we've gotten every member question answered and we've gotten every super chat. So, yeah, not bad 300. Absolutely not, Ditto News. I'm extremely grateful. 300 in a month? That's, dude, for me, dude, I am so grateful. So again, that's why I was trying to be super explanatory. Don't take that the wrong way. It's just 300 in a month's definitely nowhere near enough for me to live off of. My mortgage itself is, you know, 3 times that just for the mortgage on my house. So that's all I'm saying. I'm extremely grateful for 300. It's incredible. But, yeah, I'm nowhere near making enough money to live off of. You know, it's more just like a super awesome bonus that I'm extremely grateful for. All right, I'm going to spam through some free questions. Just going to spam through them. Mello is Little Rodney's son. Hey, Benji, if the deal gets blocked, what's the likelihood that they'll stop making Xbox consoles? I don't think that the Activision Blizzard deal itself decides if they stay making Xbox or not, because I've seen some people theorize that. I've seen some people be like, hey, if they don't get Activision Blizzard, like, you know, Satya is going to pull out of gaming and Xbox. I don't think so at all, Mello. I actually don't think it makes that much of a difference in terms of like staying in the business or not. Obviously, it makes a huge difference on how much revenue is coming in and profit and things like that, right? Because you assume Call of Duty is going to remain massively profitable and Blizzard games and King. And so it makes a huge difference on their bottom line, whether they get Activision Blizzard or not. But I don't think specifically if the deal's blocked, like suddenly Satya and Phil and everyone just pulls out of gaming. I don't think it's that drastic. It's a huge, you know, things massively change whether they get them or not, but I don't think it literally means if they stay making gaming or not. Not that specific thing. Like I said, I do think you start to wonder if we finish this generation and Xbox Series sales are nowhere near expectations and Game Pass are nowhere near expectations for growth, then you might start to be like, but I don't think it's Activision Blizzard specifically that decides that. Ricky Maru, isn't Microsoft the one big company that shouldn't have to let games like Redfall launch in this state? Why are they not allowing for more delays, fixes, and support? Again, in the specific case of Redfall, a delay wouldn't have changed much. It wouldn't have changed much for Redfall in this specific state, guys. Because again, it would have taken a massive delay. Years. All right? Years. Fixing Redfall is not something that gets fixed with a 6-month delay. Fixing Redfall is something that gets fixed in a 2-year delay. Like, that's not a joke. That's not a joke. Now, again, maybe they could have got a little more polished if they delayed it by 6 months. Absolutely. I'm not saying that a 6-month delay of Redfall wouldn't have improved the game. It for sure would have. But a 6-month delay for Redfall does not change Redfall going from a 64 Metacritic to an 80 Metacritic. It just flat out would not. It flat out would not. Maybe instead of a 64, it gets like a 69 or 70. Hey, that's still an improvement, but it ain't going to get it to an 80s plus Metacritic. That would have taken a complete reworking of the game, which would have required years of changes. But I definitely agree with the overall sentiment about questioning what's going on with Xbox first party. I do get that for sure. Michelle Tackett, you are an awesome man. Oh, well, thank you. I very much appreciate that. I often think very negatively about myself. So whenever people give me compliments like this, I very much appreciate it. You know, I can tell you, you guys don't ever have to worry that I'm one of those guys that's an egomaniac that thinks he's just the most awesome dude. Every time I get a mean comment, I'm like, don't worry, man. I basically agree with you. Every time someone's like, Benji, you suck and you're ugly and you don't know anything, I'm like, yeah, actually, you know what? Me and you are both on the same page. So, you know, I don't take it that personally because I pretty much agree with you. So thank you, Michelle. I very much appreciate that. Also, Microsoft needs to get their act together with first-party games. Tears of the Kingdom and Spider-Man 2 are coming. Microsoft is in danger of being left behind. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. They need some very big event-level quality exclusives. Yes, they do. Zach Portelli, Benji, you need some posters to hang up on the wall. Yeah, I need to make my layout look way cooler. You know, this room is just like a spare room in my house, and it's not very big. But it's the only room I have like to stream in. I definitely need to make it look cooler for like my streams and YouTube videos for sure. You're absolutely correct. I think about it all the time. I'd have to completely rework the way the room's laid out, which is not impossible by any means at all. I absolutely can. But yeah, I'm going to have to make some changes for sure. My YouTube's very DIY. You know, I only this month really started trying to grow the YouTube channel. It was only one stream a week for years. If you notice, this week, the last like 2 weeks is the most content I've ever put on my YouTube channel. I started making pre-made content. Some of those went over very well. Some of them did not. The earnings for Xbox and PlayStation videos did really well for me. The Nintendo Super Mario video, not so much, but that's okay. They're not all going to get huge viewership, and none of my stuff gets huge viewership. But for me, like what I consider a successful video or not is 1,000 views. And I know for like a giant YouTuber, that's like crazy because they get like hundreds of thousands, but I'm small time. So for me, I consider a video successful if it hits that 1,000 views mark. So they're not all going to hit that, but I'm going to try and consistently put more content up. So I am trying to grow it. Getting the room looking cooler will help in terms of just like the viewing experience. So I know, Zach, I definitely got to do better. Aditya Shankar. If roles were reversed and this was Jim Ryan / Herman Holst, there would be daily articles asking for them to step down, except these things don't matter in the case of Phil Spencer. Huh. I do agree that people really like Phil Spencer. In fact, I do too. I like Phil a lot. And Phil is a great ambassador for gaming. And overall, I think he's doing a good job running Xbox. Again, I don't know that Phil Spencer is who we point to here for these issues. And I'm not saying he's not, guys. I don't know. That's why you guys won't see me ever sit here and single out an individual person, because I flat out don't know. I don't know who's making some of the decisions or what. So I don't know if it's as extreme as what you're saying, Aditya, but there's no doubt I would say that Phil Spencer is definitely much more well-liked by the average gamer than Jim Ryan is. And hey, for a flip perspective, Aditya, you've seen me come out and defend Jim Ryan. I did that in my PlayStation earnings video. I talked about how, you know, people like to make fun of Jim Ryan and, you know, question him, but he's a brilliant businessman. And you can just clearly see that in the way that the PlayStation brand has so much momentum. So I do think Phil Spencer has a more well-liked persona than Jim. And maybe that helps Phil, you know, maybe not take quite as much heat as maybe someone like Jim Ryan would. But I'll defend Jim Ryan as a businessman. I think Jim Ryan, we have to be honest, not the most personable person. And maybe if you meet Jim Ryan in real life, he is the sweetest, most amazing guy you would ever meet. That is entirely possible. But if you put Phil Spencer on a stage and you put Jim Ryan on a stage, Phil has that charisma. He has that connection where Jim doesn't. And that could impact to a degree the way people write about the two different people, the feelings towards the two different people. Jim just doesn't have that like very personable stage presence that Phil does. That guy, 310, what's up? Do you think Microsoft will pressure Bethesda to bring out Starfield at a perfect state? Microsoft Studios must be sweating it. I think it needs to. Like I said, I would delay Starfield if you have to. I would absolutely delay that game. If you have to. If it's not ready, delay it. I know you can't delay things forever, but at the same time, you can't follow Redfall up with another, Redfall level game. And I'm not saying Starfield will be, but they can't do that twice in a row. HBK Champ, hey Benji, found you from Twitter. Yeah, that's where most people follow me. I don't get, like I said, the YouTube channel is very small. It's at 4,000 subscribers. Meanwhile, the Twitter is about to hit 70,000. I'm probably going to hit 70,000 followers on Twitter next month. So yeah, the gap is huge. It's very rare someone discovers me on YouTube. There's some, but most people discover me through Twitter. My question is, after the incredible success of Mario movie, which PlayStation movie do you think will be able to match it? A well-made God of War, maybe. Well, God of War is going to be a series on Amazon Prime. So we can't factor God of War into that because God of War is an Amazon Prime series, kind of like how The Last of Us is an HBO series. And Horizon is going to be a Netflix series. So if we're talking about movies specifically, I don't know that Sony has any movie that's going to make $1 billion. I mean, $1 billion is a high bar. I'm trying to think of any Sony franchise that's that's not going to be a series that could have $1 billion box office. I don't think there is one. If I'm being honest, HBK Champ, I wouldn't predict any PlayStation movie to make $1 billion at the box office. No movie in gaming has ever come anywhere near $1 billion. Not even $500 million. Before this, the biggest video game movie ever didn't even make $500 million. So as of now, I think PlayStation Productions is going to have some huge hits on their hands in terms of series. If God of War and The Last of Us are very well made, if they have that, I think I said The Last of Us. If God of War and Horizon have the same level of quality that The Last of Us did, I think Sony can have massive successes in series. But billion-dollar box office movies, I don't think they have any as of now. That can change. I wouldn't expect an Uncharted sequel to make $1 billion, for example. Maybe if Uncharted 2, maybe if we see the level of jump in the Uncharted movies that Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2 was in the games, maybe all of a sudden you could see Uncharted 3 getting close to there because, hey, the original Uncharted movie made $400 million, which is nothing to sniff at, and the movie wasn't that great. So maybe if Uncharted 2 is like a 10 out of 10 movie, all of a sudden Uncharted 3 could, I still don't think it'd make $1 billion, but maybe it could get to like 700, 800 million. But yeah, there's nothing there right now I see as $1 billion movie. That's a high bar, man. Mario's success is crazy. Crazy. All right, couple more and I'm bailing, guys. Couple more and I'm out. Thanks for an amazing stream again. The YouTube channel is popping off lately for me. I appreciate it so much. Exactly. Dangerman1337 echoes exactly what I said. The problem of Redfall is its conceptual stage. Delaying by months won't fix its inherent problems. Exactly. Yeah, this was one case where I actually don't think you can really fault Microsoft for releasing it in the state it is, because these were problems that happened years ago in the development process. Mantis says they should have delayed it until the performance mode was a thing on Series X. Yeah, again, maybe you push this thing by a couple months and you get a little bit better product. That is entirely possible. It just wouldn't have been a game changer. There was no game changer unless you completely reworked the whole game, which takes years. Yuri says, I wish they'd use their absurd amount of money to get their already existing first party straight. I don't disagree. I don't disagree. So I think if Activision Blizzard gets blocked, it might not be the worst thing for Microsoft. They really got to get what they own under control first. because man, are they going to be stretched thin. You know, think about what Phil has to oversee right now. Phil has to oversee all of those internal Xbox studios, which has massively grown from where it originally was. And he still has to oversee all of Bethesda as well. Yes, I know that Bethesda is still kind of separate from Xbox Studios. It still has its own leadership and everything. Trust me, Phil is still overseeing everything at Bethesda. That doesn't mean that Phil himself is telling every single Bethesda employee what to do, but Phil is overseeing all of it. He's going into those Bethesda studios. He's looking at every single game they're making. He's talking to every single leader at Bethesda about the decisions they're making. Then you want to put Activision Blizzard, thousands of more employees, like 8 or whatever more studios in that mix as well, while you're still not like got everything smooth sailing on the home front you already have. Could be a rough few years for Xbox figuring all of that out. Let me grab a couple questions from the bottom before we go. Just like one or two. Rough Diamond, hey Benji, do you think Microsoft should improve its ecosystem and software department, since if their Microsoft Store and Xbox app on PC works badly, like 110, their ecosystem on PC doomed to part publishing in Steam? They really do need to improve their PC app. I don't use it, but I still hear nothing but nightmare stories about the PC app for Xbox, and that's how people interact with Game Pass, right? They don't interact through Game Pass on Steam. So, Rough Diamond, absolutely. They should have that thing working flawlessly. I don't know why it's still such an issue for them, because that is going to affect your growth of Game Pass on PC to some extent. If people are constantly having a miserable experience on PC installing and playing games through the Windows Xbox app, you might annoy people enough that they just don't do that. So, it should be flawless, yeah. That should be something that should be like an extremely high priority to get right, but I don't know. Chris Brandick, love what you're doing. Well, thank you so much, Chris. It's really nice, man. Joseki, still better than me spending $12.99 to host my podcast, earning $0 because it's too niche to get accepted for monetization. Yeah, like I said, I am extremely grateful for the money I make on YouTube. Extraordinarily so. I would not be able to buy near the amount of games to give my opinions on and stuff if it wasn't for you guys. And I consider myself very lucky that I've even gotten to where I've gotten at. Absolutely, Joseki. I would say, yeah, I mean, building an audience is hard. I don't even really know how it happened for me, if I'm being honest. I don't know. I think most people that have ever found success to varying levels on Twitter or YouTube or whatever, Instagram or whatever, it's not an easy thing to explain how it happens. I don't really know. I mean, to some degree, people must like my opinions somewhat, but I don't think I'm like the smartest guy in the world. So yeah, it's tough, man. Joseki, it is tough, man. I can't really explain to you the combination that somehow got me to where I am. I don't know. All right. Maybe I end there. Benji here. Hi, Benji. Not sure about Sony's hardware strategy. PSVR 2 a soft launch, PS5 Slim late 2023, PS5 Pro late 2024, and the portable. That seems like a lot. Thoughts? It is a lot. Individually, they kind of make sense, though, besides PSVR 2. Yeah, PSVR 2 is the big question mark here. That thing just did not find success. We got to be honest. And maybe it can have a turnaround, but it needs the software, which it right now doesn't really have. here's why I think the Pro and Slim actually do kind of make sense. The portable is questionable though. So PS5, this new remodel that's apparently coming this fall, and we don't really know if it's truly a Slim or what. It's some sort of new model. I suspect the whole reason that thing exists, Benji, is because it's just cheaper for them to make. And if you can make the PS5 cheaper, that is nothing but good news for you. So I totally get that existing because I think the current PS5 is just not going to exist anymore. So, hey, if you bring the cost of making the thing down, first of all, your profit margins are going to be higher. And B, depending on how much you bring that cost down, you might be able to get a price cut at some point, right? I don't expect it this fall, but like maybe that means you can price cut next year, which would be tremendous for these new consoles. So on that one, totally makes sense to me to get it out if you found a way to make the PS5 cheaper to make. And the Pro didn't seem to make a lot of sense at one point, but I'll tell you what, the more and more games we're seeing coming out struggling to hit consistent frame rates, the more that Pro makes sense. And I've been telling you guys, Unreal Engine 5 games are going to be heavy as hell. And I had a Naughty Dog developer respond to me whenever I was talking to him on Twitter. It's a public tweet. I'm sure you guys can find it. Me and him were talking, me and this Naughty Dog dev, and I was asking him, I was like, you know, Unreal Engine 5 seems super heavy. As far as I'm aware, I bet this is going to result in a lot of 30 FPS games. And he was like, yeah. He's like, if you're going to be using Lumen and Nanite, which is basically the two big cells of Unreal Engine 5, he was like, good luck getting big AAA games running at 60 FPS with all the bells and whistles of Unreal Engine 5 turned on. So a Pro that could potentially get more games to 60 does start to make sense. You know, as we're seeing more and more of these current gen only games hit, you're seeing the consoles already starting to struggle. That doesn't mean making 60 FPS games isn't impossible on current gen, not at all. There's always going to be trade-offs and balances, but you're seeing as more current gen only games, not cross gen, but current gen ones start to hit, it's starting to not become as easy to hit that 60 FPS target. So we'll see, but the Pro kind of does make sense to me. The portable, big question mark. I'll have to see this thing. It's a little weird. This was originally reported by Insider Gaming that it was only going to be like, what's the word? I can't remember the word they use, but it basically has to be tethered to the PS5. Like you have to be within vicinity of the PS5. I don't remember exactly what they call that. It's not something you could take on the road with you, for example. I actually am starting to think that's not true, though, because there was a report out of this whole court case that's going on of how Mark Cerny has filed a patent recently about like incredibly low latency through streaming. I have a feeling once this thing actually ships, I think it's going to be a cloud device as well. I know Insider Gaming is not reporting that. I think it is. I think Insider Gaming just doesn't have all the information. I have a feeling once this thing ships, it's also going to be a cloud streaming device that you can take portably. So we'll see. I would say, Benji, it kind of makes sense if it can be a cloud streaming portable. If it is specifically only where you have to be within vicinity of PS5, I do see that being extremely niche. But if they can make it a truly cloud streaming device, could have some success. All right, guys, I'm going to call it there. Big, long stream today. Beefy stream today. We went for almost 2 hours. And we talked a lot about Redfall today, a lot about Xbox. I appreciate getting all of your guys' thoughts, all of your guys' questions. Really fascinating discussion today. There is going to be a second live chat this week. It's going to be on Friday. Unless there's just like no news. If we go all the way to Friday and there's like zero news this week, then I'm not going to bother doing a second live chat. But since this one was almost entirely, there's only a couple questions I answered that weren't about Xbox. We absolutely will do a second live chat as long as there's some decent news to talk about on Friday. So look for that. It'll be the same time, same place on Friday as long as there's news. And I'm going to call it there. First of all, thank you to all of the channel members. I appreciate that so much. Thank you to everyone that donated in Super Chat today. I appreciate that also so much. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We do at least one of these chats every single week. Plus, I am now starting to do more pre-made content. I'm not going to ever be a YouTuber probably that's just getting you a new video every single day, but I'm going to try and make, you know, a couple videos a week as long as there's good topics to talk about. And yeah, follow me on Twitter if you're not already. Benji-Sales. I'm sure if you're here, you already follow me, but in the off chance you're not, follow me there. And I'm going to bounce, guys. Stay safe. Play some games. I will see you either next time here on YouTube on Friday if you only follow me here. Otherwise, if you follow me on Twitter, I'll see you very soon, okay? Have a great one, guys. Thanks for the great stream. Bye. Bye, 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 bye. Bye, 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 bye. Bye.